Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. My name is Gary Gomes. I'm a Vedic astrologer. I've been around for a while, uh, about 30 plus years. You can see my background by checking out my Facebook page or any of the bios you see online. There are a few online, and so I'm here to talk with you about Vedic astrology, its place in the world, your connection with it, and also how astrology affects you in your life and the world over the next week. So we've had kind of an interesting period here. Oh, by the way, I do want to remind everyone to like, subscribe, comment. Please let me know if you'd like some things. I will be expanding the number of posts I upload. We are expecting to post an interview with Gene Karazian and John Karazian and some other folks who I've worked with in the past over the next few weeks. And I'm looking forward to dealing to actually moving to live streams uh, when I can get a little bit of a break, probably after Mercury goes direct, which is on May 15th. So that's the first good news for everyone out there. Mercury retrograde is really not as big a deal as a lot of astrologers make it out to be, but it does screw up communications a great deal. So essentially, uh, if you're going for a desired effect with a Mercury um, direct combination, or with a Mercury when Mercury is retrograde, excuse me. So that was a Mercury retrograde moment right there. But when you have that happen, um, essentially the communication will have to be restated several times or will have to be revised or readjusted. And you're better off making a final decision when Mercury is direct. And that'll be on May 15th to May 16th. A lot of Western astrologers use, I can't recall the technical term for it, but basically Um, there's a little bit of fallout from Mercury retrogrades. So essentially, Mercury retrogrades tend to have an impact for about 3 weeks after Mercury turns direct, um, which I think is a little bit overstating the case. I usually see things clear up for about a week after Mercury turns direct. This Mercury retrograde, though, has been a little bit difficult, mainly because it's been in the same sign with Rahu and really close to Rahu. So let's see if we can share the chart. I'll share it. And I am going to try some different chart options for you folks um, over the next few weeks. And then stop the share, and we're going to pull it up again just to be on the safe side. And more time for good luck. Okay, so I'll do this occasionally because Zoom does have a tendency to not show charts at times. So see this cluster right over here in the 11th house. Um, in general, in general, these past few weeks, I would say even months, have been difficult for friendships, and that's mainly because um, the starting sign of the zodiac has Saturn in it, and also Mercury, which is the planet which is connected with friendships or distant relationships, has been afflicted by Rahu. So you'll have friends who will seem to be overly ambitious, friends who will seem to be taking advantage of you, or seem to be using you to upgrade their status or to upgrade their position in the world. Uh, this is tolerable to a certain extent. Um, so everybody wants to do good. I like to see when, when my friends and when everybody does well in the world. But this combination can indicate that friendships will be a little bit greedy, and there have been some, well, I would say, some miscommunications, even some uh, unintentional communications, which you've probably seen or encountered over the past few months. And this Mercury retrograde over here will tend to expose those. Um, this is actually kind of an important combination because from my experience, so Rahu and Ketu are the north and south lunar nodes. And whenever Rahu and Ketu are involved with something, the truth comes out. So I think one of the most important things to keep in mind is you may be hearing some unpleasant things lately, you may be encountering some unpleasant or attempts at underhanded behavior. Um, and again, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say you should stop being friends with these people, but you feel yourself being taken advantage of, you might want to consider who you have as your friends over the next few weeks. Um, a lot of this tendency will tend to go away over the next month or so, just in general. And I think we're seeing this on an international level as well. Um, so it's not just happening personally to people. I mean, we have Venus in the first house in this chart. So you see right here, Venus is in Gemini. One, two, three, four. So it's three signs away from where this retrograde Mercury is. The Lord of the first house is in Mercury's sign. So again, there's this tendency to fall in love with the wrong kind of people. Um, I recommend staying out of relationships for about, well, not in general. I mean, if you're happy with a person, if they're from a different background or from a different culture, that could work out. But in terms of um, in terms of expanding relationships or getting into formal relationships, I'd wait probably until, oh gosh, probably until early June or, um, and I would probably go slowly with relationships over the next 4 to 5 months, just in general. If we're talking about, so my favorite topic is to talk about the world. So there's a certain number of predictions I give you every week for general predictions I give you every week. But I think the Mercury Rahu, one of the best demonstrations of the Mercury Rahu conjunction is what happened with CNN's town hall this past week with former President Trump. And I don't want to dwell too much, so I'm not Trump obsessed. I'm just, he's a big political figure. And also, you've seen it happen in a variety of governments around the world. There have been setbacks and scandals connected with world leaders. But the way the so it, so it, if you don't like a person, you're going to find evidence to support the position that you take. If you do like the person, you're going to find evidence to support the position you take. So I mean, I realize this is all relative, but CNN was being battered for weeks. Cable news network was being battered for weeks over um, coverage of over giving former President Trump a forum. And I think one of the things, so a lot of these decisions aren't based upon politics or upon liberty or upon free speech. They're based upon ratings, and CNN thought they could get good ratings. Um, the problem was that at least for people who hate Donald Trump. And there were a lot of what was that it didn't paint. I'm just trying to think of a good way to put this. Trump was able to use the interview to his own advantage. So I'm trying to keep this as neutral as possible. Um, and I think also it didn't change, by and large, it didn't change people's opinion of him. Uh, so if you already liked him, you know, you would say he came out great. If you didn't like him, you would be essentially saying, "Oh, that was a lie. That was a lie. That was a lie." And I'm not here to judge whether or not he was being truthful. But this combination, Mars has left uh, Mercury sign is now a Cancer sign. And so what I'm telling you today is not a lie. Um, but he may have lied in the interview, because Mercury was still in the sign. But it was really kind of at the borderline. So, so, so long story short, um, they're hoping to boost ratings, which they did. Uh, I don't think they were hoping to legitimize Trump, which they did. Um, and or to give him a platform for his positions, which they did. So again, when you're doing something in Mercury's retrograde, it will always have unintended consequences. Me just saying that may have unintended consequences for me, but I have to be honest with you folks, and this is one of the things that happens when Mercury's retrograde in the chart. And you have to be truthful to yourself. You have to be truthful to what you say. Venus in the first house indicates I am being very truthful to you in communications. Okay, so that's a flaw I have, and I do I couch it um, in very diplomatic terms, but I am a very truthful person. And the other thing is the Mars K2 combination down here. This is interesting because this will give outbreaks, more violence, more potential for earthquakes, more potential for monetary panics. And with Rahu and Mercury aspecting this, and Sun and Jupiter conjoining in the sign, there'll be more ethical concerns about government. Now, the good news is things will calm down just a little bit in terms of um, government pushback or government trying to control and seize the narrative over the next within about a week. And you'll see government actually focusing on economic issues um, instead of speech issues, instead of trying to move in a more censorship style direction, which I think they've been moving towards over the past few years and trying to control um, speech. And again, I'm not saying I understand the perspective that they're viewing uncontrolled speech as dangerous. Uh, but so essentially disinformation as dangerous. But this Saturn aspect on the sun has been really detrimental. It's made them come across really, really badly. Um, and also Saturn aspecting Jupiter, they really haven't been doing the right thing. They're trying to control, or a lot of governments around the world have been trying to control or manipulate data. and manipulate communication. So that won't go away anytime soon. But they'll start to focus on economic issues because they'll be forced to focus on economic issues after May 16th. And that'll continue throughout the summertime. The only downside, so Mercury will go direct. He'll still be with Rahu, so we'll still be getting miscommunications and what I would call exaggeration. Saturn's still aspecting Mercury, so we'll still be getting a lot of doom and gloom from the media, which is essentially, and doom and gloom about commerce. After around May 31st, you'll see a slight uptick in commerce. You'll see some slightly good economic news. And around, I would say around early June, you'll start to see some improved communications and improved happiness in the chart over the next month or so. The only downside to this is that Mars aspecting K2. I don't like that combination. I would be very careful about driving, about accidents, about saying things you really don't mean to say to people over the next couple of months. This is going to be true in terms of wars, in terms of, so you'll probably see a lot of tense situations developing over the next 2 months. I do not believe that we will see a major war break out this year. However, the only problem is I think the war in Ukraine will be prolonged at least until November. And after that, there may be some kind of attempt to resolve the peace. But I don't know. I'm just a little bit worried about this Saturn in Aquarius because it tends to um, prolong events. So this could run as long as 2.5 more years, or about 2 more years. The situation in Ukraine, or it could be resolved if people cool down and negotiate after November. But that's the earliest I see any signs of peace talks is probably around June. But I think one of the things, whoops, sorry about that. Let me get back to the screen. Stop the share and go back to the screen. I didn't mean to move out of that. My apologies. All right, so let me close this. So I think that these next couple of months, especially the next 2.5 months, will be dangerous months, but not impossible to navigate. Also, because Mars is in uh, Cancer, and I'm seeing some potential for domestic violence or political violence in various countries. And again, as I've said to you many times, the United States is having some problems. It'll definitely have some domestic violence problems, and it has. We're in a Rahu Mahadasha. I've seen nothing to contradict that. We're in a Rahu Mahadasha, and people want change during Rahu Mahadashas. They don't care what kind of change; they just want change. And I think one of the things that happens when we hit these particular situations is that people will resort to violence. So this isn't really the kind of mass shooting kind of Mercury retrograde kind of violence. This is domestic grievances. This is people um, protesting, maybe even getting a little hot-headed, and maybe even going back to um, situations like we saw in the 60s. We're seeing a lot of campus-related activities happening, which was again part of what happened in the 60s. And it's really not getting quite the same coverage as it did then because in the 60s they were taking over administrations. In right now in the 20s, we're seeing campuses start to attack visitors and start to attack um, people they don't agree with. And I think that'll lead to a lot of on-campus violence. That Jupiter-Rahu conjunction is not good. Also, um, I think you're going to see a lot of conventionalism questioned over the next 11 months or so. A lot. This is a peak time for people who are disruptors, what I would call disruptors. And disruption is not necessarily a bad word. Disruptors are people who essentially try to change existing systems. And so this will be a kind of a peak for that activity. It'll continue into next year, but in a different way. And you'll see some changes in political systems over the next 2 years or so, just before the 2024 election in the United States. You will see certain heads of state lose their power. Charles got inaugurated as King of England at, I would say, a very bad time. Um, but, and to be honest with you, I see the monarchy maybe not fading away, but certainly being questioned for the next 20 years, having far less power than it has right now. And will it be dissolved? That's that I don't know. If I were daring, I would tend to say, uh, to me, it's an outdated institution. That's to me personally. Okay, but um, I'm not going to tell another country how to run its affairs. Okay, um, but that Saturn aspect on Sun, that exalted Sun, uh, Charles probably won't stay in office for a very long time. Now, again, he's an older man when he took office, right? So um, that's almost a given. His mother was very long lived, um, but I think um, even if the monarchy dissolves, to be honest with you, it's not going to have an impact on day-to-day life in England. A lot of these institutions we have that we put so much attention on really don't affect us day to day. They affect us in terms of what they take from us or what they or the kinds of laws they enforce, but not really in terms of day-to-day life. And we're talking about, so again, we're going to see a lot of leadership changes. I'm going to do this one more time. We're going to see a lot of leadership changes over the next few months that will still continue. Um, you're also seeing some realignments of financial interests. But I believe it's the BICO countries or BICO countries, so essentially Brazil, India, China, um, sorry, Asia, uh, asserting itself more as an economic bloc, and the European Union losing more power. Um, and but again, that'll be delayed a little bit because of certain things that are happening in South America that are um, they don't lend themselves to that right now, at least right now. So South America is going through a tough period, as we've seen before. In terms of domestic affairs, again, Saturn's aspecting Jupiter. Um, the Fed may lower interest rates or may reduce interest rates next month, or just stay straight, stay flat for the next couple of months. Um, The only problem with this is I can see a pattern developing almost like what happened in the 1970s, where we'll have interest rates stabilize. Then after a few months, we'll see inflation start to go up again. So that's not a good look for a country. The Turkish election, I think Erdogan, a few weeks ago, I was saying Erdogan had a good chance of winning. I'm looking at the data now, and it looks like it's time for a change in Turkey. So we'll see what happens. May 16th, I believe it is, and May 31st, or does it run off? But right now, it doesn't look good for Erdogan. And that should raise some optimism uh, in the financial markets. And I mean, the inflation rate in Turkey is just insane. We're talking about 5 or 6% inflation, and of course, the 10% inflation. And in Turkey, it's been uh, much, much higher. So when those kinds of situations come up, people do tend to get voted out of office. That's just uh, natural. So let's move away. So again, potential for earthquakes, minor conflicts, and I'm seeing it in particular in China and in this is just based upon certain factors connected with the country, China, and also uh, even in um, even domestic trouble in the United States over the next few months. So, and definitely in Europe, because Europe is um, the European Union chart is really a bad chart. Uh, they're going to be overwhelmed. They're going to have a lot of domestic disputes over the next few months. And Southeast Asia is already embroiled in those. South America is already embroiled in those. We're kind of like, I don't say blissfully unaware, but we're kind of experiencing those to a lesser degree than other countries are. So let's go to the individual signs. I've gone on a long time about that. I apologize if it bores you, but these things will essentially, and I'm not saying that sarcastically. I know that people don't like this part of the presentation, but this is important to understand the world, to understand how it's affecting you. Okay, so that's why I do this first. So let's get to the exciting part and how it's going to affect your charts, your individual charts. So we have Aries has all these planets still clustered in it. It's been this way for the past few weeks. Um, the good thing is Aries, the sun will actually leave Aries, and that's kind of doesn't make sense to a lot of people, but um, that will make a lot of people less demanding, less insistent, less aggressive, and that's actually a good thing. Um, the sun goes into the second house. It'll be focused on this sign for money and ways to bring money and family life under control. Rahu still sits in the first house. Jupiter still sits in the first house. Ask considered to be a lucky combination, even with Mercury. So there will be financial opportunities for the sign over the next couple of weeks. So that's good, so especially after May 15th. Um, with the with Mercury turning direct, you have probably been able to encounter some good bargains. That's one of the blessings of Mercury retrograde, but it's also kind of some bargains will seem too good to be true, and or there'll be hidden clauses or hidden prices connected with them. But that it is good for that. Venus is in the third house for this sign, so essentially they'll calm down and mellow out a little bit. Mars is in the fourth house. This will mean more fighting at home, more arguments at home, and also family feeling kind of confined or depressed because of the Moon Saturn conjunction over here. Ketu's in the seventh house, so relationship life will still seem to be a little bit tough. And that Saturn Moon in the 11th house indicates friends will be looking for personal advancement at your expense. That's a theme for pretty much every sign, but it's particularly true for Aries. For Taurus, so this doesn't mean you have to be paranoid. I would say just treat everybody diplomatically, keep your own minds and your own goals, and don't be taken advantage of by friends holding you back or by telling you not to do things. Okay? Saturn's in the second house. It's in so there will be good gains for Aries, but again, slowly be patient. I'm sorry, Taurus is the next sign we're going to look at. This is uh, May 15th to June 15th. The Lord of Taurus is in the second house, so it's a good time for money. But again, Taurus is spending a lot right now. Mars is in the third house, so give Taurus more aggressive behavior, more externalized behavior. You know, Ketu's in the sixth house. Taurus should look out for illnesses. We should look out for uh, any any disease contact. Saturn's in the 10th house, so good for career, good for elevating yourself in career. A lot of hard work. This Jupiter in the 12th house, a lot of emphasis on travel, wanting to be somewhere else, wanting to be in a different environment. And again, watch out for spending too much money. For Gemini, Venus is in the first house. That's generally a good placement for Gemini. Right, rising in sun, that's June 15th to July 15th. And overall, whenever you get this kind of combination, it's good for people getting involved romantically. You know, a lot of people want to get involved romantically when Venus is in Gemini. Um, and it's a little bit tricky because there can be fears about whether or not the relationship partner uh, will have fidelity or will be consistent. But Saturn aspecting Mercury kind of alleviates that a little bit. But still, what I would do is I would still move very slowly in relationships over the next few months, just because of K2 and Libra. Mars is in the second house, so this sign is a little bit blessed right now. They'll have some good luck coming in terms of money, and even in terms of expenses, they'll save some money. For Mars in the second house, they'll tend to be more aggressive, even maybe a little bit more fearful than normal, but they won't be attacked. Third house Lord is the sun. Lord of the third house is in the 11th house. So this will be a time when you can actually implement your long-term goals, and you'll have support from famous people or well-known people. Fourth house Lord is Mercury. Again, rise in status, quick rise in status, especially over the next few weeks. So I would take advantage of that. K2 is in the fifth house, so children will be a little bit temperamental or a little bit sad, but that's kind of normal. They'll also be unexpectedly gifted. Saturn is in the ninth house, good for support, especially from financial institutions, and some increase in money, like for the sign, because the moon is you have the second lord in the ninth house, which is good for financial gains. And Jupiter is in the same sign with Rahu, so that gives fame to relationship partners and also to you. Okay, so that's good. A lot of gains. There'll be short-term gains, but there'll be strong gains for this rising sign, this rising or sun sign. For Cancer, we have Mars in the first house. Now, this is kind of a mixed combination because Mars in the first house um, for Cancer is considered to be devoted, is considered to be weak. So a lot of the more aggressive significations of Mars tend to be um, put on hold, but people will feel emotionally hurt more easily, and also they'll tend to be much more reserved. But when they blow, and around 2 months down the road, they're going to blow. Um, they're going to really around 1 month they're going to get very self-righteous, and in about 2 months they're going to really explode because of Mercury, because of Mars being in a stationary culture. But regardless of that, um, this placement is actually considered to be good for both career and what I would call past life credit or luck, things you've already worked for. So this is kind of a contradictory placement, but Mars is considered to be actually the best possible planet for Cancer rising. Its significations are dampened, so there'll be less attention on strategy. There'll be more attention on just doing actions emotionally, and also there'll be some softening, so Mars won't be quite as sharp as it normally is. So that's how it manifests in a debilitated status. Um, so the aggressive tendencies of Mars and also its logical tendencies tend to be tampered down quite a bit. But it's not necessarily a horrible placement. It actually brings a great deal of luck to Cancer. So they can't say Cancer. This is July 15th to August 15th. For K2 in the fourth house, some problems with luck, some problems with work, maybe feeling like you don't know how to satisfy or please your boss. A lot of investigation going on, a lot of probing behind the scenes for this rising sign and for the sun sign, and also some dissatisfaction with money, which we've seen before. Venus in the 12th house is actually good for saving money, so it's actually not that bad a time for this planet to save money, but a little bit difficult for relationships and a little bit difficult for peace of mind because Moon is in the 8th house. So people will feel a little bit oppressed or a little bit fearful with this combination. And I've seen it in some people with Moon in Cancer already or with Sun in Cancer already. For Leo, Leo has no planets in it, but you do have Sun, Jupiter, Rahu, and Mercury affecting the Sun. You also have Marichi, which is a malefic group of Graha, which is a status, Ihur's status for this particular sign. So it's like having a small Mars in that. And Arada, which is like having a small Mercury. So people with this rising sign will tell little lies, what I would call little lies. But nothing really, not big, not big ones. The other thing is you have K2 in the third house, and this particular placement along with Kodana, which is like a small Mercury, will make the sign a little bit unhappy with what it has. It'll make it more ambitious, more fearless. Saturn and Moon are in the 7th house. This will bring some expenses connected with spouse, relationship partner. Um, and again, this is August 15th to September 15th, just to recap that. And you have Jupiter in so you have a good combination though in both the 9th houses and the 11th houses, which is kind of a wealth producing combination for Leo suns or Leo risings. Now, again, this isn't going to be as spectacular as some other combinations because Saturn's aspecting that 9th house combination. So you'll have to fight for every inch. And you may not be able to do some things you want to do right away. You may have to plan them out, but still it's not a bad placement. Mars being in the 12th is really the worst placement uh, in this particular chart because um, a lot of your resources, a lot of your aid, a lot of your uh, um, luck will be dependent on people um, other than yourself. So for this sign, we're really looking until around July before things get better in terms of taking control of your life. But overall, this doesn't look like a bad reading for Leo. Saturn aspecting the first house and Saturn in the same sign with the moon always makes this sign seem a little bit depressed or down, but it's not really an unlucky combination. For Virgo, this is September 15th to October 15th. K2 still in the second house. You have Jupiter aspecting it, so there'll be some financial gains. Mercury aspecting it, financial gains from people in the past, but delays. Saturn aspecting Mercury. Uh, Saturn's in the sixth house along with the moon, so there'll be some struggles connected with career, but if you stick with it, you'll make it through. Venus is in the 10th house, so career life will actually expand. It'll start to become easier. Mars is in the 11th house, so you may have fights or arguments with friends or feel a little bit abandoned by friends. Mars aspects K2 in the second house, so just again, be careful what you say. Just be a little bit thoughtful. Try not to say the first negative thing that comes out of your mouth. For Libra, October 15th to November 15th, you have K2 in the first house. This has made this sign go a little bit under-recognized, but it still has a degree of luck because of the Saturn Moon conjunction in the fifth house, which is actually a Raj Yoga for this combination. So career life should increase a lot over the next week. Relationship opportunities will seem strong, interestingly enough, but some of them will be illusions. Some of them will be people who seem interested, but are really they're shopping around. And there'll be attention from younger people, from teachers, and from people who seem to have a lot of power. Venus is in the ninth house, which is very good. So luck is increased. The more you learn, the more lucky you'll be. Mars is in the 10th house. So again, career life's a little bit challenged, a little bit emotional. You'll have to work a little bit harder career-wise. But again, a better week than we've seen for Libra in a long time. Scorpio uh, has Mars in the ninth house, which is actually not that bad a placement. This is considered to be a bad house for Scorpio rising for a variety of reasons, but overall, the first lord in the ninth house is generally a lucky placement. So if you can focus on your goals and not be too overwhelmed by the amount of work that's connected with that new Saturn combination, you can make a lot of progress this month. Also, sixth house, be careful of accidents, be careful of damage. Venus is in the eighth house. Relationship partners will bring in a lot of money. You'll also seem to be very sexy this month. Mars is in the ninth house, which we've already discussed. K2's in the 12th. So again, watch out for expenses or for carelessness in terms of um, theft or people trying to take advantage of you. For Sagittarius, Moon and Saturn are in the third house. Jupiter's in the fifth, and that Raj Yoga I spoke about that Rahu is often engaged with, and Mercury and Sun and also to a certain extent Jupiter are engaged in that Raj Yoga as well. So this should be a relatively good week for Sagittarius. A lot of hard work though. Saturn and Moon are placed. There'll have to be a lot of research done in order to achieve what you want. Venus in the seventh house, you'll attract really nice or beautiful relationship partners, but they'll be a little fickle. So just again, it's wise to take your time in any relationship, just in general, um, but particularly so these next couple of months. Okay. K2's in the 11th house, so again, watch out for your friends. Friends will change direction. The United States has been encountering this over the past few months. So for certain people we thought were would stick with us no matter what are showing signs of changing direction. So look out. That's why you want to look out in the world to see how it reflects in your life. Capricorn is this is December 15th to January 15th, and essentially Saturn and Moon in the second house. Generally not a bad combination. Good for financial, like especially through relationship partners and good business partnerships. Steady, stable. Saturn, um, Jupiter, and Mercury. Not necessarily a good placement for this sign. It sort of constitutes a kind of what I would call a repeat Raj yoga in the fourth house, but that's really not good. So home life will be a little bit disrupted. There'll be arguments about who's in charge at home. And Venus is in the sixth, so that's not really that great. Mars in the seventh is actually good because it actually gives relationship partners more energy. And K2 in the 10th looks a little bit rough because of lack of career success. Now, again, this situation with the Sun and Mercury being in the sign is temporary. It'll be gone by the end of the week, so you'll be back on track by the end of the week. Aquarius looks like it's having a good week. It's pretty fearless. It's going to go after a lot of what it wants, but it's still holding itself back and trying to make excuses for not doing what it wants to do. So anybody who's born or has a strong Aquarius influence, that's what's holding you back. Saturn in the first house is pushing you in directions you don't want to be pushed in. Is focusing on obstacles. But if you want to get something, now is a good time to do it. Okay, so do it before the 15th to 16th, or do it on the 15th or the 16th. You're going to buy something or grab something. Venus is in the fifth house. Again, very lucky combination for this rising sign or sun sign. Mars is in the sixth, where it can't hurt anybody, although it does give some career blocks or obstacles, and you'll get pretty emotional about career matters. K2's in the ninth. In terms of learning, in terms of educating yourself, you're pretty much on your own. Okay, but not a bad week for Aquarius. For Pisces, our last sign, and by no means least, we have this nice combination, this nice Dana or wealth producing combination in the second house. The sun's the only detrimental planet there, and that'll change within about a week's time. Venus is in the fourth house. Your domestic life looks pretty stable, although children will be a little bit emotional, a little bit easily hurt. And finally, K2's in the eighth house, and that's good for so relationship partners will seem to be critical or isolated. And finally, Moon and Saturn are in the 12th house. Don't buy a lot of things this month you can't afford. So let's go to the map, the world map, and have a lot of time to look at this. My own fault. So let's see this. And it worked the way I wanted to. So, okay, so we're seeing a Venus line going through Hawaii right now. So Hawaii's probably going to get a lot of rain, which is not a real surprise. Um, and also, there'll be some minor government scandals in Hawaii, but nothing really to write home about. These Rahu lines are passing through Alaska, so we're going to see some governmental action, maybe even some governmental scandals happening in Hawaii. Sun's edging close to the west coast. So again, you'll see a lot of uh, what I would call government uh, control, government trying to. So essentially, California passed the reparations bill. This is a perfect Sun Rahu combination. Uh, so it has to do with. So Rahu is essentially deals with people who have been oppressed or outcasts, and that's a perfect descriptive uh, uh, things that happen for California. So that passing that last week was indicative of Sun Rahu conjunction. It will be adjusted though, just because Mercury's retrograde. Saturn and Moon are in the middle of the country, and Venus is passing right over. Looks like Minnesota, the border between Minnesota and North Dakota. So this area right here looks like there'll be some um, agricultural issues, some agricultural problems. The Saturn Moon conjunction down this line. A lot of these people will be working hard, but there'll be a strong potential for layoffs down here and also through Mexico. The Venus line is running through here, so heavy rainfall is indicated, and but also more or less a pleasant time for it. I know there's the DeSantis Disney trial is coming up, but you'll also see some scandals happening out of Cuba, Haiti, North uh, North South America through Venezuela, and definitely a series of scandals coming out of Brazil and Uruguay and Paraguay. Okay, so South America is still in general afflicted, although uh, Argentina, it looks like, and Colombia will get a little bit of a break. Um, the Azores is afflicted by, which line is that? Sorry, folks. A sun line. So the government will start to take more control, and the Canaries will start to take more control of those governments. Portugal's in kind of bad shape right now. The economy is bad, and North Western Africa is also having all the way down through um, this region. And I keep forgetting myself. I think it's Liberia. I could kick myself for not remembering that. But that part of the world is having some economic hardships, some big economic hardships, and is actually translating into Spain and Portugal's governments are essentially in relatively poor economic shape right now. So this line is kind of far away, but it's still affecting them. And over here we have a Mercury line running through Eastern Europe, all the way down through Libya, all the way down into Central African Republic, all the way down into um, South Africa. And so those areas should have a lot of political scandals. Also, Greece, um, Eastern Europe, and even into Finland and Sweden. You should expect in Poland. You should expect some media scandals. I know they've been having some problems um, with immigration. That may be the media news, but it looks to me more like economic news and problems with leadership. Uh, Turkey is between Venus is between Venus and Mars. Also look for flooding in these countries. I apologize, flooding. Um, Mars is hitting. So Turkey's not being influenced by this, but Venus in the first house does actually mean a change for Turkey, I think, or Venus close to it does mean a change for Turkey. Um, Mars is running through roughly through the area connected with Ukraine, Saudi Arabia, and down through all the way down to Madagascar. Okay, so Western Africa is having its share of financial crises, appropriation of resources by other powers. That's happening with China right now. Again, I'm not saying that the colonial powers didn't do the same thing that China's doing right now. Essentially, China's um, calling some debts that it's owed and is taking properties and assets in payment. So it's less militarized, but um, it's still think of the mortgage crisis uh, and, and and China foreclosing. Um, Mercury, and there's a lot of action in Iran. I would say a lot of protests going on in Iran, um, Kazakhstan, and into middle Europe, into middle of Russia. And we have a descending sun line going through western India and a Saturn moon line going through eastern India. So there'll continue to be some government oppressions in India. Although the country will be doing okay economically, it's at least from my perspective. This is so this is just my perspective alone. The government's getting more oppressive in India. Um, Sun is yeah. So and there will be government scandals connected with India, especially in the eastern regions. And we go over to China. That hits China to a certain extent as well, and also Sri Lanka. There aren't a lot of lines hitting um, China right now, so China's probably in a little bit of a recovery mode. South Korea, though, and Japan are hitting some government scandals. South Korea is actually doing pretty well financially right now. Heavy rainfalls are indicated by Venus, and finally, you'll start to see a lot of government scandals in Australia, uh, New Guinea, and some economic hardship close to New Zealand. So that's it for this week. I'll be back next week. I love you all. Thank you for your patience with me. It's always an honor to see you, an honor and a pleasure to see you. And I love you all. And again, thank you. Namaste. Be healthy, be safe, and I wish you realization. Bye, everyone. See you soon.